Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.
Welcome to A Coffee with Karen. And this is my weekly show where, well, it's really a cup of positivity with just a sprinkling of woo-woo. Now, I wouldn't say my next guest is on the woo-woo end of it. Maybe he's going to be giving some insight from a bit of a mixture from the mental and the actual physical perspective of helping you with the art of persuasion, I suppose I would say. So first of all, David, thank you for being here. And if you can share with the listeners a little bit about who you are, what you do, and share your story.
Yeah, sure. So my name is David Thomson. I run a business called Suada, and Suada is the Roman goddess of persuasion, spelled SUADA.com, so suada.com. My background is in sales. I've spent the last 30 years in sales, and I work with a guy called Dr. Robert Cialdini. He's the world's leading social psychologist on the topic of persuasion and influence. So everybody wants to be an influencer. This guy helped Obama get elected to the White House. So he's a university professor that's different, and I'm one of 6 people in the world licensed to teach both of Dr. Cialdini's courses. That's Persuasion and Persuasion. And we can talk about anything you want to know with sales. My background in terms of upbringing, by the time I was 10, I'd lived in 9 different houses. That's a house every year, just about, apart from 1 year. Been to 5 different schools. And when I went to school, I was dyslexic, and they didn't have that back in the day. They just thought I was thick. So 16, I'd left school with 0 qualifications, big fat 0. And didn't know what to do with myself. So I joined the army, not because I wanted to join. I joined because all of my mates from school were joining. They're like, we're going in the army, we're going in the army. And I was thinking, shit, don't leave me here in Kettering. We're going in the army. And Status Quo were playing the song In the Army now. And I thought, okay, I'll join the army. And because my stepfather, who's like a bully and all the rest of it, he said, you'll never stick the army. Of course I had to do the army. So I joined and became a soldier on the 11th of March, 1986 in Her Majesty's Forces, the 2nd Battalion, the Royal Anglian Regiment, and went to Shorncliffe down in sunny Folkestone, which was an amazing place, 6 months there, 3 months in Colchester, and then went off to Germany for a few years. In the army, I learned to box, which was good for me because my father was a bully, used to beat me up, beat my mum up. And so I learned to box. And when I was a kid, we were really poor, like really, really, really poor. We had the electric cut off, but we never had the gas cut off, Karen. Guess why?
Why?
We never had any gas. We never had
They couldn't.
We had the electric cut off, and and I remember stealing potatoes out of people's allotments, so we had some food. There was no food banks back then. So my upbringing was really tough. So joining the army, I wanted to be tough, and then when I left the army, I wanted to be rich because we'd always been skin. And in 1990, when I left the army, I read a book by a guy called William Clement Stone, who created an insurance business called the Aon Corporation. And the book was called The Success System That Never Fails. And when I read the book, at the time I'm dyslexic, so reading books wasn't a big thing. And I was working in Dr. Martin's shoe factory. You remember, the old Griggs' shoe factory where they make air.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I was working there. And I was working there, and a friend of mine, a guy called Andy, reminded me. He said, I remember you sitting there. It all started when you read that book. So I read this book, and it was like somebody in the book was talking to me, and the book read me. And I thought, this is me, this is totally me. And it talked about having a positive mental attitude. And I thought, tick. And there being a success system to be really good at sales. And I thought, tick. And it never failing. And I thought, I think I could do this. So I read the book, got a job as a financial advisor. And at the time, there was 250,000 financial advisors in the UK, about 30,000. But in 1990s, everybody did get a job flogging insurance. And I applied for a job to be a mortgage advisor. Right, I was qualified as a financial advisor, commission only, selling financial products. And I applied for a job to be a mortgage advisor. Now, I couldn't even spell mortgage. We never had a mortgage. All I knew about mortgages was back in the 80s. when we were in Northern Ireland, there was a guy called Dan, and he was complaining about the mortgage rates going up to 17%. Now half his wages were going out on this mortgage. And I was like, bloody hell. And so anyway, I didn't know anything about mortgages, but I got this job somehow as a mortgage advisor. And then when I asked what I had to do, it was like, well, people will come in, they'll come into the estate agents and they'll buy houses. Now, we'd never had a house, council house, and that was it, nothing else.
Right.
And they'll want to borrow money from the Halifax and the Nationwide. All you've got to do is do the paperwork and do the insurance for them, and you get paid. And in my first month there, I got paid more in a week than I'd have earned in a month in the shoe factory. So in the shoe factory, I got paid 150 quid a week. And in my first week, I think I earned 600 quid. And I was like, wow, how do I keep this? Do you know what I mean? Like, how do I keep this? And they're like, oh, this is called sales. I'm like, yeah, but how do you do it? And I've always been quite logical. And so I started studying persuasion and influence, negotiating, framing, neurolinguistic programming, all of those things. And before I knew it, I was the top financial advisor in a company called Connells, which were a big estate agency group. They had a couple of hundred financial advisors. And all of a sudden, David Thomson was the best. All I was good at was talking to people. And all I did was study negotiating, framing, sales, asking questions, mindset. And I thought, bloody hell. So I kept studying. And then I changed companies. I went to work for a company called William H. Brown, who were owned by Royal and Sun Alliance Property Group. They're now called Sequence. And I became the top financial advisor in the country. And in the middle of the 90s, I was earning £130,000 a year. I had a 5 Series BMW. I had a PA. Me with a PA.
Was that the biggest thing for you? Was that that I've made it? Now I've got a PA over the money.
I just hated paperwork, and I was dyslexic, and because I was the best, I could get my own way. I was like, I need somebody to help me with my admin, and I just had a way. And then I decided that I'd start my own business. I thought, I'm going to start my own business. So I started an estate agency business. Went really well. Not the estate. I did the financial side. I always done mortgages, and then I opened another one. Then I bought a Ferrari, as you do, and then I started an insurance business, and. But the thing was, all of the time, I was all studying how to be better. And I always trained all my own financial advisors. And then 3 or 4 years ago, I was getting my business ready to be sold. And I started working with people that wanted to be body transformation coaches with a thing called the Body Transformation Academy. And my friend, a guy called Lazo, had said, I'm doing this thing with these body transformation coaches, and he'd charge people 2,000, 3,000, 4,000 to come and do this 4-day course. And then I'd teach them sales side. And typically what would happen, I'd walk in on a Sunday and the people would look at me and go, you better be good, because this has been shit. It wasn't bad. It's just they wanted to be able to make more money. That was why they'd borrowed the money in a lot of cases to do this course. And so I would ask them, what do you know about negotiation? What do you know about neurolinguistic programming, framing, fact finding? And they'd be like, nothing. And I was like, no, well, that's why you're not good at sales. And I'd start teaching it. And as I started to teach them things, I mean, I teach one of the first things I taught to them that anybody could use. So one of the first questions I taught was a thing called the transformational close, and it's from it's called instant influence. How you can instantly influence somebody to move in your direction. Would you like to hear it?
Yes, please.
Okay, so let's imagine I'm a personal trainer and you're a client, right? And I want to sell you a body transformation, but I want to do it, and I want to do it with consistency and commitment. It's one of the influence principles. And so the first question I want to ask you is, Karen, you're thinking about doing a body transformation, right? Mm-hmm. I say, but at the end of the day, you're now 35 years old. You've never done a body transformation all your life. And now you're thinking about changing. And I'm going to ask the killer question. The first question is, why might you change? Why might you change? And what I'm doing, I'm giving you the illusion of choice. Now, it doesn't matter what you say, but I'm saying, why might you change? So why might you change from what you've been doing? You haven't done this for 35 years. Why might you change?
Because it's either now or never.
Okay. So see, no. But why? In the end of the day, you've said you've been sat on your ass and you couldn't be bothered for the last 35 years. So why might you change? Tell me. Speak to me. Tell me about
that. Because this time I'm really determined. Now my children are older. I can actually focus on me for once.
Okay, great. And then normally somebody will have an event. I'll say, what are you going to do when you've changed? What are you going to, and you say, I've got a big holiday I want to go for. I want to get in that bikini order. And then, so the next question is, I'm going to say, on a scale of 1 to 10, and this takes bravery to ask this question, just so I can get an order of magnitude in my head. 10 being, I'm totally ready to do this, and it's an absolute must for me. And 1 being, I don't give a shit if this never happens. Where are you at? Where are you at, honestly?
An 8.
Okay. And the next question I'm going to ask you, third question, is a counterintuitive question. I was like, hey, that sounds like you're quite committed. Tell me, honestly, why didn't you pick a lower number? Because if you're 80% of the way there persuaded, why don't you pick a lower number?
Because this time it's different. I want to do it.
Yeah, but why? If you're 80% of the way there, you've done it before now. So why are you an 8? Why not lower?
Don't know.
Tell me.
Because I've got a holiday coming up in July, and I want to feel good this time.
Okay, so you're giving me your own reasons, right? And somebody will give you their own reasons. And you say, okay, so you've got a holiday coming up. This time it's for real. You're 35 years old. You want to see your kids. I'll say, okay. So imagine you've been working out with me. We've done the 12 weeks, right? And you've transformed your body. What would the positive outcomes be? And that's really the thing. What would the positive outcomes be?
My confidence. I'm going to feel more confident. I'm going to feel good about myself. I can wear that rather than that.
Okay. So why are those outcomes important to you? Step 5. Why are those outcomes important to you?
Because I haven't been feeling good about myself, and yeah, it's time now. That is important to me.
Okay. And then I'll say, okay, so what's the next step, if any? And then you close yourself. But ultimately, I'm getting you to talk. You're giving me all of your reasons. So you're being committed to your commitments. And so that's transformational. So why might you change on a scale of 1 to 10? How ready to change, right? So you just start asking the right questions. And what happens is people then start to fall in line. And that's persuasion and influence. That's how you make people more persuasive. It's how you make them more influential. By asking the right questions, that's all it is. But you're asking questions that the clients would ask themselves after they've made the transformation. So I started teaching that to personal trainers, and they started telling me they'd had amazing successes. And I was like, okay, happy days. Maybe I'll stay in this field rather than with financial advisors. So I sold my financial services business, and I started teaching business. I started teaching other people how to be brilliant at persuading and influencing others, utilizing great questioning, great fact finding, great neurolinguistic programming, influence, and all that. And then 3 years ago, I started working with a guy called Dr. Robert Cialdini, and he's the world's leading social psychologist on the topic of influence. He wrote the books, and he said to me, David, what would you like to do in your life? And I said, I'd like to create a university where everybody can get a degree in sales and get a sales degree. And he said, I think that's a great idea. Why don't you teach influence? And I thought, okay, great. So I'm one of 6 of his trainers in the world, and there's a few.
Brilliant. Absolutely. Because do you think that there are just so many people out there? The way I see things is that, people tend to, I think these days, they're going into businesses because it's something that they're passionate about, but they're not coming from a sales background. And that is the one, you could be as passionate about as you want about your own business, but if you don't have those skills that you've shared one of them, just one process just there, do you think that is really what is missing with all these sort of young entrepreneurs that are starting out, really passionate about what they want to do, but they're missing the one thing that
I like to call it influence, but think about it like this, right? If you want to get a job, you need to know how to influence. If you want to get people to buy something from you, you need to know how to influence. If you want to get a promotion at work, you need to know how to influence. Want to get your kids to do what you want them to do, you better understand influence.
It's all the same.
So it's all the same. And there's shortcuts. As human beings are shortcuts. When you talk about business, I worked with a global business called the British Standards Institute. I was sat on a plane flying across to Val d'Isere to go snowboarding. And I was sat next to me was the COO of the British Standards Institution, a lady called Maureen. She's an amazing lady. And she had me work with 400 of their salespeople over an 18-month period. And they hit record sales. So this works in big businesses, it works with individuals, but ultimately there's a code to decision making. If you understand the code, you know how to influence, you'll be better. So one of the things that you might consider is when you first meet somebody, what's the best way for you to get them to trust you that's counterintuitive? All right, so you're trying to persuade somebody to do business with you. What's one of the best ways that you can get somebody to instantly trust you that's counterintuitive?
Compliment them.
Okay, that might get them to like you, but it's not going to make them trust you. So praise creates liking. So then that's one of the influence principles, the principle of liking. But what's the best way to get somebody to trust you?
Position yourself.
Yeah, position yourself where? How?
Position yourself in the expert in whatever it is you want them to trust you in, I suppose.
Totally. So you position yourself as an expert, and so they might think you're an expert, but does that mean they're going to trust you? So just because somebody's got expertise, does that create trustworthiness?
No. So trust, not sure.
So one of the best ways to create trustworthiness that's counterintuitive is to admit a weakness. Right? And then pivot on the word but. Admit a weakness. So Avis for years used to be the number 2 company in rental cars. They were struggling to hers. And then what they did was they admitted their weakness. They said, look, Avis, we're not number 1 in rental cars, we're number 2, but we try harder. So they admitted their weakness and they pivoted on the word but. Guess what? Their sales went up by 7,000%. That's their profitability.
Wow.
L'Oreal used to be known as the most expensive hair care company in the world. And then they come up with, but you're worth it. And then because you're worth it, they admitted a weakness. And so if you're a financial advisor, with our financial advisors that I used to have, we'd say, look, if you're looking for somebody that specializes in inheritance, investments, and worse things, we're rubbish. But if you want somebody that knows mortgages, then we know mortgages sideways. And to people who trust you, if you dare to be as bold and as brash up front to admit where it is you're weak and show that vulnerable side, people will think, well, this person's a straight shooter, and they'll trust you more. So admitting a weakness is a massive way to get somebody to trust you that goes against the grain. And when do you think you admit your weakness, early or late?
Early on.
Early on, straight away, because then they think,
right.
So anything you say after you've admitted your weakness, I now can trust you. So that reduces, and they've done brain imaging studies to show that if you do this, what happens is people start to trust you straight away. So instead of trying to be perfect, we want people not to be perfect, but we just want them to be honest. And the way that they're honest is to admit a weakness. And they'll find your weaknesses out anyway, so you might as well get them up front and just be straight.
Fantastic. I mean, that's, with regards to sales, do you think that it's because maybe people have some sort of preconceived idea of sales? They've got this, I'm probably talking about myself here, right? Okay. This preconceived idea that sales equals dishonesty, go back to your stereotypical second-hand car salesperson. So for some people, and I do think that for me personally, there is this mental block here, is that, we, like you said, we need to sort of reframe things so we're influencing as opposed to sales, because the initial concept that comes up with me with sales is that I'm trying to convince somebody to buy, rather than with you, what you're saying is completely flip round the other side, and actually they are coming to the decision that they actually want you, right?
So what you and most people don't understand is beneath any influence process, any sales process, there's 3 stages. You've got forming relationships, you've got overcoming uncertainty, and then you've got motivation and action. They're your 3 stages. They're your 3 core motives. And people get stuck at different stages. So some people will say, I don't like you, I've not got a relationship with you. And so some people might be great at forming relationships. But does that mean they're great at overcoming uncertainty, i.e. convincing the other person that they're an expert and they're the best person to help them, or they've helped lots of other people like them. No, it doesn't. Or alternatively, they're great at forming relationships. They're great at overcoming uncertainty. But all the time the client says, I want to do it, but why should I do it now, Karen? Why shouldn't I wait till next year, till after my granny gets off the bus, till after Brexit, until, until the summer, until whatever. So they want to solve. And so there's influence principles that help you overcome those things. And behind any kind of decision making, when you're talking to a client, if you understand what somebody else is going through and at what stage they're at, then that can help you immensely. Like if somebody says, if somebody gets a great relationship with you, but they want to go and speak to their friend, their brother, their cousin, their accountant, that shows uncertainty. And there's two principles that teach you how to overcome uncertainty. One is the principle of social proof, right, or consensus. So when we're inside of ourselves and we don't know what to do, what we do is we look outside and we look into one of two places. We either look to the voices, the opinions of experts. Alternatively, we look for evidence that you've helped similar other people like me. So when somebody's saying to you, I like what you're saying, but I don't know, I really want to go and speak to somebody else. What you should be doing is providing them evidence of other people that you've helped like them. Alternatively, persuading and convincing them that you're the expert. And it's not a case of you being good or bad at sales. It's just a case of you don't know what move to make on the chessboard. And there's a great program on Sky, not on Sky. It wasn't Sky. It was on Netflix called The Queen's Gambit. I don't know if you've seen it.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet. No.
It's fantastic, and it's about chess, about a game of chess. But it's about knowing what moves to make. And a lot of the time, it's not about somebody being a car salesman or anything like that. It's about there was a philosopher around the same time that Jesus was around. He was a Stoic philosopher called Seneca. And Seneca's famous words were, a consciousness of wrongdoing is the first step towards salvation. A consciousness of wrongdoing is the first step towards salvation. In other words, you've got to know what you're doing wrong before you can correct it. So if you don't know there's 3 stages in influence: establishing relationships, overcoming uncertainty, and motivation action. And you keep thinking, but people don't like me enough, they won't buy. And it's not that. It's a case of the fact that you need to overcome more uncertainty with them. So you need to provide them, to convince them that you're an expert and know exactly what steps to take, or give them social proof that you've helped lots of other people like them. You've got to know what moves to make. So that consciousness of wrongdoing is knowing what stage you're getting stuck at, and then making small, often tiny changes to your processes that make a massive difference. And that's what influence is all about. It's what the science of influence is all about.
Right. So it is about learning the process or the journey that you're taking. Somebody who's probably in a state of almost, fear might be a too strong a word, but they're, fearful in some way, and you've got to bring them slowly up the scale until they are.
Slowly, it could be seconds. You can move people in seconds. You ever seen the film The Matrix?
Yeah.
Right. So when you see Neo, he stops all the bullets.
Mm-hmm.
When you understand the science of persuasion and influence, it's like that. You know exactly what to do to stop the bullets. You totally change the world. You can totally change the world. To understand it, there's a code. There's a code to decision making, pitching, framing, negotiating, influence. When you understand the component parts that build up an interaction, a communication, and you know how to do it from a persuasive perspective, it's simple. And normally it will start off with understanding influence, understanding the principles of influence, the science and the ethics, and how to put them in ethically and effectively so you can persuade people long term to work with you. And it's fun. It's ever so fun. You feel in control and you feel enlightened.
Right. I think it's I don't know. For me, it really is the one thing that I fear, I suppose, in all the whole thing about my whole business. And I do know a lot of people that sort of feel the same. They're really in their comfort zone with what they do, and they might be brilliant at what they do, but that whole I suppose in some cases they have a sales team to do that kind of thing. But when it's just them, it can be something. But I suppose like anything, it's a learnt skill, is it?
Yeah, it is. But what we can do is a before and after. I can take you through a transformation process, and we'll do another episode where you will come back and go, "Oh my God, I now know what I know. I've changed I've changed loads of people's lives with this, loads of people's lives by teaching them what sits behind persuasion, what sits behind influence, and how to be effective in your communication to get people to say yes to you. And it works so well. It's simple, it's effective, it's fun, it's empowering, and ultimately, if you want a better partner, better relationship, motivate your kids, whatever it is you want to do, understanding influence will only make you more effective.
Yeah, because I suppose everything is, we're all in sales, aren't we? I mean, it's not just business. You think if you're in business, you're in sales. But yeah, like you say, it's how do you get your child to tidy the bedroom without there being, without it blowing up? Or how are you going to get them to agree to go and watch a certain film?
One of the things you don't do with regards to tidy your bedroom, you don't go in and remind them how often they don't. You never tidy your bedroom. Your bedroom's a mess. Right? That's one of the worst things to do.
Doesn't work.
Because that's the degree to which you tell somebody that what they're doing is common, they won't do it. Whereas if you say everybody else does this and they're the only one that doesn't, they won't want to do that because it's scarcity. It's they want to miss out.
Yeah. I find bribery works quite well, though.
But what you have to understand is if I ask you to do something, so influence is about, there's two ways to influence, right? There's one way to influence, and that's cash and intimidation. You can do it, or the mafia will come around, or you can do it with cash and that'll work. But you can do it with words and images, and I'd rather do it with words and images because that's permanent and long lasting as opposed to short term, which is just using cash.
Yeah, bribery is only going to work for so long because then you're going to have to keep up in it, aren't you? It's not a long-term solution.
Hold on a minute, I'm not tidying this bedroom because Mum's coming with some cash in a minute. I might as well wreck some more cash. This is a nice job, it's a lovely position.
So how are you? How many kids have you got, David?
I've got 4 kids. 4. And
how are they? I'll bet you've had no problem. You've mastered the art of persuasion. I bet there's been no problem in your household growing up.
My kids are really good. So, and here's a funny story. My son changed schools last year, right? Not last year, year before. His sister came out of a private school, and dad made a load of cash, so I could pay them to go to a private school. And his sister got 10 A's and 1 B. She went to this boarding school called Uppingham. It's like one of the top boarding schools in the country up there with Eton. Anyway, he got his GCSE results. He got 2 A's, 2 B's, and 2 C's. That was it. And so he did what most of us would do by in the school, crap, teachers, crap everything. So he said, look, I'm changing schools. And I'm like, okay, fine. So he decided he was going to change school to this school called Kimbolton that had got its own castle. Oh. Wow. Okay. It's real super private school. I thought posh, but this is posher than posh. Kimbolton school, you'll see it. So anyway, he goes to Kimbolton school. Before you know it, he's been there for a few months and he's like, I'm not sure about this school, Dad. And I'm like, mate, you ain't changing because if you want to change, you have to pay them 10 grand worth of fees you have to pay them a terms thing. It's 30 grand a year. You ain't change. And he's like, I really like to change. So anyway, we're not having any of him changing. He's staying there. And anyway, he's doing really well academically. We get around Christmas time. We're sat around the Christmas table, not this Christmas con, but the Christmas before. And I'm asking my kids what they want for Christmas. 3 of them are there. The other one is off with his girlfriend. He's a bit older now. And my youngest, Millie, I said, what do you want? She wants half the Argos catalog, cost 200 quid. My other daughter, Hannah, she wants a gap year. And I'm like, no. I don't want money on your education. She's now off at Royal Central in London, staying in Hampstead in London, enjoying it as much as she can with lockdown. So she wants a gap year. And my son, I said, what do you want, mate? And he said, I'll do anything to go back to my old school, my old job. I'm like, no. And then my daughter said to me, Dad, I think you need to have a word with T. I'm like, why? She goes, he's really, really upset. So he said, oh, no, the other day he was talking to me and he said, I've had enough of this. I hate it. He said, I feel like jumping off the roof of the fucking castle. Oh, shit. I thought, better get back in the old school. So I ring up the old school where he went to before and say, my son wants to come back because he does. Like, I've got to get him back in. And like, he's my best mate, so I'm ringing him up and I speak to a lady on reception at the old school. And she says, oh, hi, David. It's Debbie. And we're talking and we're having great fun. Yeah, bring him in on Friday. I'll book him in to see the headmaster. Happy days. I'm thinking, that's great. The next day I get a call. Hi, David, it's Mrs. Ennis from the school. Your appointment with the headmaster has been cancelled on Friday. David's not welcome back at the school. Goodbye. And that's like voicemail. I'm like, what's going on here? So I ring the school, speak to Mrs. Ennis. Hello, it's David. Yes, your son said something to the head of upper sixth that no child should ever say to a teacher. Our upper sixth is really settled now and he's not welcome. Goodbye. Oh, shit. So I've got to go and tell him. His name's Dave, same as me. We call him T because I'm DT, he's T. We're both. I said, mate, I don't know what you did on the last day at school, but you've blown your chances of getting back in. He said, what do you mean? I said, you said something to the head of upper six. What did you say? And he goes, oh, God, not that. I'm like, well, you remember the last day I came out, I was wearing a lanyard? I'm like, yeah. He said, well, this guy only made me wear a lanyard. He said, I've been at the school for 10 years. And I said, what did you say? So I called him the C word. Like,
Oops.
Oh, God. You can't say that. You're never getting in. Now, while I was studying to go and work with Cialdini, he's the world social psychologist, massive academic. He said to me, because I'm dyslexic, I'm crap at reading. My son has been reading all the books with me and he understands all of influence. And he says, tell you what we're going to do, Dad. He says, we're going to use all your influence skills to get me back into that school. Mate, don't drag me into it. You're getting back in, you're right, and you're getting in yourself. So anyway, he drafts this letter up to the school, utilising reciprocity, liking, scarcity, consistency, all the rest of it, another letter. Gets the teachers through the school, ringing the school, even negotiates with the old school, don't have to pay any fees. I said, I'm not paying any fees, and here's what it is. He only gets back into the old school. And they said there was no chance. So
wow, biggest lesson he ever had, huh?
Yeah, and so if we learn to influence, we can change our business and change financially. But if we teach it to kids, they can change the world.
Totally. Oh, and isn't it a shame that it's not actually taught in schools?
Well, I've been working. I'm part of the Entrepreneurs in Residence team at Portsmouth University. So I've been teaching. I've just started working with Portsmouth Uni, teaching it to kids. So I think it's
brilliant,
interesting.
Brilliant.
You have to give it a bit back, and and I love helping people, so it's fun.
Oh, fantastic! Oh, there you go. Yeah, my girls, although they are doing well, my youngest, she's doing business and finance, but again, I bet there is very little with regards to sort of the sales side of things, and that I just feel that is why is that missing? Why is there so little specific sort of sales training that seems to be out there? Really,
I don't get it. I mean, for me, going back to like the kid in the council outside, the no electric, stealing food, understanding how to persuade and how to influence and how to get people to say yes to me changed my life completely. I'm like, at my wedding, this was the thing. So I got married in 2007, and my best man was there, a guy called Mark Turner, one of my best friends in the world. He said to me, he said to everybody speaking, he said, when David, I used to get in his car, there was these Americans on, and they'd be playing all these things, talking about this stuff. He said, and I thought it was a load of bollocks. He said, now I'm here, and we got married at Stapleford Park. We had a $100,000 wedding. It was mega. I did the brains on it, and we had you name it, we had it. We had everything like decked out. It was incredible. And he said, but now I'm here. He said, I'm thinking, oh my God, I wish I'd learned what he'd learned.
Yeah, I wish I paid attention.
I wish I paid attention. And so I think the one skill that teaching somebody to be persuasive, to be influential, whether you're a boss in a business and you're trying to get a promotion or you're trying to persuade people to your way of thinking, it makes such a difference. And it's so powerful. It's so powerful. And right now I'm working in the fitness industry with a company called Premier, teaching their guys persuasion and influence.
That is, they are the company that I suppose launched my career many moons ago. Back in 1995, I did my
So that was interesting. And Premier are the biggest in the world. They're the biggest fitness business in the world. They've got some incredible people. I'm just teaching their teams, taking them through how to frame, how to negotiate, how to use influence effectively. So it works, and they've more people are buying more from them, and they're spending more with them as a result of the training. We're only partway through, so it works.
Yeah, Of course. Well, they sold to me. I mean, when I even initially went on the course, I didn't even know what sports therapy was. So I was only going on the course to be a personal trainer. I wanted to be a personal trainer. And then I got down there. This is when they were just based in Wiltshire. And I got down there. So it was sort of all in-house. You went and stayed down there for months on end. And I ended up doing the complete diploma, even though I had no clue, never heard of sports therapy, didn't know what it was, but stuck with it. So they weren't doing too bad even back then. But I'm
there you go. So I mean, and they'll only get better now. I guarantee you that they'll be even better.
Yeah, absolutely. So what is it? So this, how do you pronounce it? Is it Swada? Swada?
Oh, yeah, Swada. So I call it. It could be Swada. Could be Swada. Suada, Swada, and it's Swada.com, and it's the Roman goddess of persuasion. And basically, we run different kinds of training, some online stuff, some it's all online now, but Zoom, Skype, and typically I'll take somebody through a transformation program where they'd learn about the mindset, how to frame, how to negotiate, or they could do a 2-day influence workshop. But my preference is teaching the DNA of persuasion and influence, the same things that I learned, to teach to other people so that they can be empowered and enlightened to make any decision they want to make. And I was thinking, imagine you're running a business, right? You're running your business, Karen, and somebody pitches into you and they say, right, and you want a salesperson to come work for you. And they say, I can tell you anything you want to know about neurolinguistic programming, how linguistics work. I can talk to you about the mindset required for success. You know, what positive mental attitude, negative mental attitudes. I'll talk to you about framing, deframing, reframing, pre-framing. Talk to you about influence, all the influence principles, unity, liking, reciprocity, scarcity, how to use them in a combination. You'd be like, start Monday. This is a superpower. So when people understand these things, they get any sales job anywhere, and also that they'll be successful because they understand the DNA of persuasion and influence.
Yeah, so there really is a complete process.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, and most of the time, people that teach this stuff, right? Most of the people that teach this stuff, you know, what they'll say, well, if you're any good at it, you wouldn't be teaching it. You'd be doing the job. I've done the job. I've built the business. I've sold the business. You know, I've been very, very, very successful. And now, I like helping other people. So I'm like, okay, let's teach it. But it's rare that you'll find somebody that's crossed the path that's been really successful that's come into the training world. Most people are, they've done one or the other, they're training, but they've not got the success to back it up. So
absolutely, I do see a lot of that. A lot of coaches out there that profess that their expertise in that, but there's no evidence that they've actually ever built any business prior to that. But they think they can position themselves to actually teach that. So you've done both.
Well, I started right at the very, very below the bottom, and then just climbed out of that well into the world, and then went, been to hit the stars, and so I understand it, and I've helped lots of other people do that as well.
Cool. So what's for you then at this point in time? What's your favorite? So you're doing many different things there. You're helping out with, is it Portsmouth University? So you're helping teach the kids with the Premier, doing that. And this, of course, I presume this is your baby, right?
So I've just created some proprietary technology to teach persuasion and influence to anybody, where you've got social learning, you learn from other people. So if I teach you something, how can I make sure you get it? How can I make sure that, guaranteed, Karen, you understand what I've taught you? How do I do that?
But for me to replicate it?
Yeah, but you need to say, you teach me it back. So what happens is you can't get a transformational result from an informational product, i.e. a book or an online course. In order to get true transformation, you need 3 further steps. Application by an expert, somebody that really knows their stuff to teach you it, and then also confirmation that you're doing it right, and then consultation, the ability to ask questions and get answers. So I've created some proprietary technology in the education technology space to teach the science of persuasion and influence that's transformative rather than informative. No good giving you information. I need transformation, and that needs to be guaranteed. For me to be in integrity with myself, I need to be able to look you in the eye and go, guarantee I'll help you. And then also be able to stand there with good karma and know that 100% of the time that will happen, providing you do the work. And if you do the work, the outcome's guaranteed.
Yeah, well, I mean, that makes a lot of sense because, nobody failed in their business due to a lack of information, because there's just so much. There's information everywhere. Information by itself is not going to create any change, is it? It's the actual, it's being able to implement what you've learned. And there's so many people. I mean, what would you say? There's so many people out there, and I know I've done it too. It's almost like you're right. The next thing, the next course to learn, and they're almost a collector of training.
Do you know why that? Do you know why people don't implement?
Mm-hmm.
Do you know why it is? What stops you from implementing something you've learned?
Fear, in some form.
Not quite, right? So I worked with a guy called Lanny Basham, and Lanny Basham is an Olympic gold medal winning athlete. So he won a gold in the Olympics. So the amount of people that won a gold, there's not many. He wrote a book called With Winning in Mind. He went to the Olympics in '72. So he's an older guy. He went and he choked in the final because he didn't think he deserved to win. And then he went and studied all the gold medal winning athletes. And what he found was they all thought differently. They used their brain in a different way. And he worked with a guy called Maxwell Maltz, who discovered the self-image. Right? And so ultimately, you can't outperform your self-image. So if you don't see yourself as the kind of person to do a task or to achieve a goal or an objective, you won't do it. So what I do is I help somebody to re-engineer their self-image with technology so that you don't get information, you get transformation. And so you need to see yourself as the kind of person that would do it. So it's about rewiring your neural pathways inside your brain so you think you are the right kind of person, you're the person that's worthy of it. And so it starts there with the right mindset. And mindset starts with wiring, putting down the hard wires so that your automatic response is the right response from a persuasion perspective. You understand what to do, why you're doing it, and how it works. Because even if you know what to do, if you don't know why it works and how it all fits together, what will happen is your self-image will say, this is not like me to do this, and you won't do it. But if you understand why you're doing it and how it works, your self-image grows, and you go, well, of course I do that. I understand it. You feel like you own it. So when I start working with somebody, if I'm working with you, I'm going to make sure you understand it, you understand what it is and why it is and how it fits together. And so that it's like you to stand up, put your shoulders back, those big brown eyes, look somebody in the eye and go, of course I can do that because I understand it completely. Not you understand part of it, but you actually own it.
Right. So do you think that's why so many people do struggle with this? Does it stem from those feelings of I am not worthy?
The feelings of I'm not worthy, or I don't really understand it. And so if you don't feel like you understand it and you don't feel like you own it, then why would you do it? It's like if you stood on a skateboard and you haven't got a clue what's underneath, you just know this thing, you want to get off of it. But if you understand the dynamics of it and how it is, you've got a choice whether you get on or get off. You understand how it's moving, but you have to understand it. It's that a consciousness of wrongdoing is the first step towards salvation. That's Seneca saying. You've got to be conscious of what you're doing, why you're doing it, how it works, how it fits together. When you understand it, then you want to implement it. But if you've got a tool, it's like a chainsaw, and you don't completely understand it, I'm not picking that up. But if you understand how to use it in a non-dangerous way, you might use it. Or if not that, then what else can you do? Or how can you get somebody else to do it? But it's really about having your brain focused in the right way, on the right things, to ask the right questions.
Being aware, I suppose, a lot of these things, would you say that they would be a subconscious? They just might not actually be aware as to the reasons why. Okay. So is it making them aware of that?
So there's a guy called Socrates, right? 2,500 years before Christ was knocking around. And Socrates said, if I ask a question or a series of questions to which a prospect will readily agree, and then ask a concluding question based on those agreements, I'll receive a desirable response. And one of the first things I learned. So it's not so much about selling somebody or persuading somebody. It's about asking really good questions you'd have to ask yourself if you owned it. So what questions can I ask is better than what can I tell this person? So if you can ask your way into any situation, but you can't talk your way into many. So if you think about the questions in advance, like why might you change? On a scale of 1 to 10, how ready you to change? You start asking the what and the how questions. Somebody might think differently and then they act differently. But if you're trying to say, this is a really good product, this is what it'll do for you, here's all the other people it's helped, you're missing it because you're coming at it from the wrong perspective.
Well, you're trying to tell them again. It's which I'm sure that's what I used to think is. I feel like I've got to sort of convince them. So you're trying to tell them rather than what you're sharing with everyone right now is that flip it on its head, ask specific questions so that the person then, if they're coming to their own conclusion, then you're not actually selling anything.
And it's lovely then. The experience is a nice experience. And then understanding there's rules, like to when you're talking to somebody, there's some rules, things you do and things you don't do. And what you're never going to do is like, here's what I think. Because if you say something, the person's going to doubt it. But if you ask them questions, what do you think to these 3 options? Which one's going to work best for you? Do you like it that way, this way, this way? Do any of those work for you? If you feel like you're just offering somebody choices and guiding them, because how much of your money do you spend at the end of the month? How much? All of it. Right? Everybody does. Most people spend all their money at the end of the month. They're going to spend it either with you or on shit anyway. So if you can persuade them that yours is better to spend it on than something else, they'll spend some money with you. But you've got to be able to ask them questions to make them think, well, do you know what? It feels right. It feels right to do it. And also it sounds right. You know, it sounds right. It resonates. And actually, that's a good idea. But if you can't, you know, you're going to get beaten by, you know, the next thing or the next person asking a better question.
So you're looking basically, I suppose you're looking for a win-win rather than a, you know, people might buy if you've been that persuasive, but then they might have, what's the word for it, when you all of a sudden regret it.
But I mean, ultimately, we all have buyer's remorse. If you don't think that's true, look in the wardrobe. We're like, oh my God, why did I buy that? You know, we make bad decisions, we make good decisions. But the key thing is, if you're trying to run a business, the number one skill to get right, more than anything else, is you got to get people. You got to persuade people to part with some money. And also, the other thing is, if you're running a business, the one thing that to hate in a business is if you're people dependent. If you think, oh my God, I hope my number one person, Karen, doesn't leave, because if she leaves, whatever, guess what? She leaves, and you're in the shit, right? So, if you're running a business, you need to be able to build your own salespeople. And the way to understand it is know the DNA of persuasion and influence, understand framing, negotiating, all that. Be able to build your own, and then you'll feel empowered and enlightened as opposed to beholden. Thank you.
Yeah, because otherwise you're giving your power away, right? Rather than
it's horrible. We hate that.
Yeah.
You think, oh my God, if they leave, I'm going to be crying. This will be a nightmare. You're worrying about something that might or might not happen. But if you feel like you can build your own, then all of a sudden things can grow.
And it doesn't have to be, well, again, like you said earlier about, you know, it can be fun. It doesn't have to be this dread thing.
Right. If you get it right, it's fun.
Serious.
If you get it, understanding how to persuade and influence is fun. It's like a game, but you know the rules and you know the tactics.
Right. So you're just guiding people along until they reach the obvious conclusion that whatever it is that you have for offer is the best thing for them, right?
That is the only solution. There's nothing else. This is the right way of doing it. You go, well, I don't want that, and that's rubbish, so I want yours. Yeah. And ultimately, people get worn out afterwards. Think, well, I can't bother to think about it. But yeah, just sort it out for me. You do it. I like it. Sort it out. Yeah, I definitely need to lose that weight. I need to get fit. I need to do. You're right. And I've not really thought about it like that. So please, can you tell me what to do?
Awesome. So this platform that you have, is it for, do you have it for groups? Is it just for individual entrepreneurs? How does it all work?
It works for both groups and for individuals. So if somebody wants to learn how a superpower, then I'll help them. If they've got a business or a team, then I'll help them. I mean, ultimately, you want nice people that want some help. That's it. You know, that's it. And I've got a team of people that work with me that just make it fun.
Right. Yes, it doesn't have to be. Why do we take things so seriously?
Don't know. When you live once, you might as well enjoy every minute of it. That's my take on it. Just enjoy every minute, then you'll get it right.
Oh dear, yeah, absolutely. So anybody out there who's listening, it doesn't really matter what business you're in, because if you're in business, you're in sales. So get over it.
You're in sales now, whether we realise it or not.
Throughout life, just like as you said, it's not just that, it's the kids, the relationship that you want, absolutely everything. You want to be able to learn the art of persuasion. And it doesn't have to be this sort of sleazy thing that's definitely, you know, a blockage in my mind, which is something that why I've sort of hated sales, because there's obviously some, I don't know, I don't remember being missold a bad car, but there's something going on that is from that, you know, mental perspective that is stopping me, or for me trying to avoid that talk, that conversation. I want them to come to me, but it's something that we all need, right?
It's something we all need, and whether we realise it or not, we're getting influenced every day. There's a little story of in a supermarket. There, you know, at the end of the supermarket, you'd often see on there sale, right? And there's something they do, and I don't know if you've noticed it, but they do it in the supermarket that triples the amount of things that are, if they're on sale, if they put these two words underneath that word sale, that triples the amount of sale. Do you know what it is?
Oh, it's got to be some kind of ending today.
Yeah, they put end soon, sales triple.
Yeah. So it is that scarcity. People don't. So what you're saying is people's, like, their fear of losing out is bigger.
Yeah, totally. But what I'm saying is there's often small changes that you can make to your request, small changes that you can make when you're trying to motivate somebody to want to move in your direction to buy from you, that, you know, are tiny changes that make a huge difference. Here's I'll give you one more interesting study. These are all real social psychology studies. So there's this supermarket and they're selling, right, well, I say they're selling all sorts of foods. And what they want people to do is they want people to have these drinks vouchers. And they know if they give them these drinks vouchers, right, that and the people that they sign up for the drinks vouchers, their sales will increase significantly. If they can send them to them by email, they have to print them out at home and bring them into the store. They've proved that they can increase their sales significantly. So they're asking people on the way in, please can get your email address. We want to send these new drinks vouchers, right? And roughly 33% of people are saying yes. But after that, most of the other people are afterwards. They go, no, you're right. Because obviously I don't want loads of junk mail. I don't want any drinks vouchers, right? But then they put a little phrase in front of it before they asked them for their email address to send these drinks vouchers, right? Which was a persuasive phrase, right? That made the amount of people that subscribed more than double, right? That gave out their email address.
Wow.
And it was, do you consider yourself to be an adventurous person, a person that likes to try new things? Because they're tapping into the mindset, the adventurous mindset. And they'll go, well, yeah, I am. 97% of people said they're adventurous, which is bullshit.
Yeah.
Right. And they were saying, okay, if you are that, then would you give us your email address? We want to send you these new drinks vouchers. Right. And 75.9% of people said yes. So often there's small changes that you can make. That make
unbelievable. How interesting is that? Yeah. So, I mean, what's going on there then? So that's...
You're targeting the mindset that you want somebody to be in before you make your request. So think about it. How do you make sure you get the other person exactly in the right mood, right? So you persuade before you persuade. So how can I make sure that your mindset is focused in the right area, on the right thing, before I start asking you to move in my direction?
It's amazing. Are you sure you don't need a psychology degree before you?
Small changes, small changes that you can make.
They did
it in a wine shop as well. What they did was people going into a wine shop, they started playing background music. And you might think, well, what difference does background music make to how much wine you're going to spend? So they started playing French background music when people were going into this wine shop, and sales of French wine went through the roof. And then they just started playing German German music, and sales of German wine significantly increased as well.
So this is all on a subconscious level, is it? It must be. I mean, it's just...
So I teach workshops on this stuff. This is part of the things that I teach, but often it's small changes that you can make when you're trying to persuade or persuade somebody to move in your direction. Same as the 7-minute instant influence. Why might you change? There's lots and lots of things that you can do that stack the odds in your favor. And that's all we're talking about. You can't get everybody to say yes to you, but you can stack the odds significantly higher in your favor so that lots more people say yes to you. And over the last 30 years, that's what I've been working out how to do. how to stack the odds in my favor, how to make my clients stack the odds in their favor, so they increase their chances of capturing the client's attention, and also their wallet. They're wanting to spend the money with them rather than somebody else.
Brilliant. So it's really, it sounds like there's a lot to learn. There's a lot to learn, but if you understand it, you don't need, because you hear of people trying to run off a sales script, and you just think, well, that's just not going to work, because people will just instantly know that you're reading from a strict script, rather. Yeah. So I suppose having that understanding of, delving deep in the questions, what questions to ask. I suppose almost you already, I'm presuming that you already know what the outcome, or you know where this is going.
An idea what you're going, Karen. So it's giving you, it's empowerment and enlightening. So you think, well, I know roughly where I want to go. So what's the best question to take us in that direction, where I'm going to keep my client engaged and enlightened? And they think, well, okay, let's go this way and let's ask these questions. And all of a sudden, what was a dull subject that you hated, which we call sales, all of a sudden, and science is the science of persuasion. What I'm teaching you is behavioral science. There's loads of research studies behind what I do. This is fun and it's easy.
Awesome. Right. So swada.com is how to get in contact with you. Any other sort of methods? Can they reach out on Facebook?
So you can find me on LinkedIn, David Thomson, CMCT, Cialdini Method Certified Trainer. Thomson is without a P, so David, David, Thomson, CMCT. That's how you find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on persuading.com. Send me an email to david@persuading.com, or there's a Calendly link on the website. If you want to book a session, we can have a little chat and whatever. Talk about my way to help you or your sales team. But it's fun. It's powerful.
And it gets results.
It's necessary. I mean, I'll guarantee results with anybody, or you can have your money back, because this just works. It's ever so easy to do, providing you implement it.
There you go. So if you've been putting off or you've been avoiding something like this, I mean, if you want your sales to skyrocket in 2021, regardless of what's going on in the world right now, that's not an excuse. It's not a reason. So get in touch with David. That's brilliant. And I love it.
If you go to Trustpilot, put Swader and you'll see the reviews. I've helped film companies, I've helped businesses. Or go to swady.com, you see all the reviews, but it's all real. None of it's bullshit. At the end of the day, I'm too old to do that. It's got to be right, and it has to work.
So this is the kind of training I think everybody would benefit, no matter what industry you're in. So thank you so much, David, for your time today. That's been brilliant. I've learned something new again, as I do every time I speak with you. So thank you for that. Thank you, listeners. I will be back on Thursday with a keto coffee with Karen, and otherwise I'll see you next week. Thanks.
Welcome to the Coffee with Karen podcast, a weekly chat show discussing everything from holistic health to current affairs from a mental, physical, and spiritual perspective. Get your weekly cup of positivity with a sprinkling of woo-woo.